This was from Bijan Robinson. One of y'all actually got at me. I think it was Doc Texas on Twitter that sent me this. But Bijan Robinson, I believe when he was interviewed at Texas' spring game, ended up saying whoever wins in the game October 19th, when Georgia comes to Texas and the Longhorns play the Bulldogs, he says the winner of that game will be the best team in college football. Now, do we agree with that? I don't know, but I think there's definitely going to be a lot to learn. And there's something to be said for the schedule both those teams play before they even get to that game. Because as good as that game's going to be, and as good as I think Texas and Georgia are going to be, I think that there's a couple of prerequisites for us to get Georgia and Texas as an undefeated matchup. Georgia plays Clemson to start the year in Atlanta, and they go to Alabama to end September. I know everyone is just totally writing off Clemson. I know a lot of people think Alabama's going to take a second to calibrate, outside of Tuscaloosa at least. I wouldn't pencil either of those in as wins right off the bat. Now, do I think Georgia will be favored in both those games? Absolutely, but I wouldn't just say, oh yeah, easy win. I think those are going to have to be wins that they work for and fight hard for. I think the folks in Athens feel the exact same way. For Texas, they play at Michigan week 2. The defending national champions. I know a lot of those individuals on that sideline are going to be new, but still, I mean, we can't just mail that in to be an easy dub. And then they play Oklahoma in Red River the week before. They do not get a bye after playing Oklahoma and then playing Georgia. So at the very least, you're going to kind of have to hit the recharge button really quick if you're Texas, hit the reset button on the emotional capacity, because that's a game against Oklahoma that we've seen many times. The winner or the loser of that game, for that matter, it takes some recuperation to be able to play your best football after that one. You can't have a letdown. You can't be too beat up. Like, it takes something for you to play well after that one. So if both are undefeated, I think the winner obviously has a couple of things that they could attain. Clearly, inside track to Atlanta for an SEC championship bid. When it comes time for those rankings to come out, feel pretty confident in saying the winner of this game will be number 1 in America. And also, this is a major eye test implications kind of game if both are undefeated. The winner will have the best resume in America. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, there's probably some people in Columbus, Ohio, and Eugene, Oregon that feel like they should have a chance at this title. But Ohio State and Oregon, they play the week before this. Outside of that, I don't think either team has a game on the schedule that you circle right now and say, hey, that's the one. Be a top 10, top 15 matchup. We just talked about Nebraska for Ohio State, so we'll see where they sit when that game arrives. But for Ohio State and Oregon, that'll be a big game. They played the week before, but I think for all that Georgia and Texas have to do to get to this spot, if they're both undefeated, that resume is going to be pretty tough to argue with. Now, here's the other thing with this. In an expanded college football playoff, I think the winner of Georgia and Texas, if both are undefeated, more than likely locks up a pretty high confidence level for making that college football playoff. Now, obviously, you can't just coast the rest of the way, but let's look at what they have remaining. I think if either team were to lose 3 games, it's maybe another conversation, but I don't see a way where either team is going 2-3 with this schedule. Texas, their last 5 are at Vandy, Florida, at Arkansas, Kentucky, and then at A&M. If they're undefeated coming out of that game against Georgia, I don't see a way where they lose 3 of those games. Same thing with Georgia. They play Florida in Jacksonville. They're at Ole Miss. They play Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech. Not saying that they couldn't lose one of those games, but to lose 3 of those games, that to me would be a little bit surprising. So the winner of this one, I think, should more than likely lock up a pretty good feeling around your college football playoff chances. Now, this is another thing we got to talk about with this. Both these teams are phenomenal. This matchup will be phenomenal. This is one of the many pros of the conference realignment to tectonic plates that are shifting. We've kind of been against this new era of college football with, the college football that we grew up with, knowing and loving, and the Pac-12 and all those things and what the Big 12 used to be. But when Georgia plays Texas in Austin, that's going to be phenomenal. And to be honest, it may not be the last time we see this matchup during this season. There's a very real possibility we see this game played 3 times in 2024. From the regular season to the SEC title game, because remember now, no more division in the SEC. And then when it comes to the college football playoff, I wouldn't be surprised if these teams got matched up somehow, some way too. Could be a national championship game. That's how crazy college football is right now with all these different schedules. I think this game subconsciously for a lot of us will be a measuring stick. whether you think they are the best team in the country if they win, or whether you think that they have some things they got to work on coming out of it, it'll be a measuring stick. Like Texas is going to be one of the top teams in the country coming into this game, whether they're undefeated or not. Same thing with Georgia. Strictly based on the roster, both these teams have what it takes, I believe, to win or at least compete for a national championship. Now, what does that look like in practice and in principle? This game is going to tell us a lot about that. A word of caution, though, for this game in itself. I just spoke about how they could play 3 times. I'd be very careful to define either team based on this game in a positive or in a negative sense. I wouldn't make absolute statements about either team from this game. You can take a measuring stick and figure out where they stand to a degree and kind of assess them, but I'll just say this, great teams in college football, we see it all the time. They play their best football when their best football is required in the postseason. So just because these teams might look a certain way in October, I would not be surprised if they look very different when they play in December, or they play somewhere else in December, or someone else in December. I would just be cautious to make a definitive statement about either team and their chances for a national championship based on this game they play October 19th in Austin. So is Bijan Robinson on to something there? I think so. I think the former Texas running back, now Atlanta Falcons running back, has some validity to that statement. I'm not going to pretend there's not some bias baked in there too for our guy Bijan, and that's why we love him for it. But still, there's a lot of other variables at play, but at the very least, this will be a very good measuring stick and have some implications like college football playoff race and the SEC title race. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.